Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. Today we're looking at starting over, new beginnings, fresh starts. And we got a ton of requests to dive into this YouTube video called How to Start Over in Life, 7 Priceless Tips. It's from the channel The Life Formula. And, just even skimming through it, there's some really interesting stuff in here. But we're not going to just rehash the tips. We want to kind of look at why these tips work and how they all connect to actually make real change in your life. One thing that jumped out at me right away was how much this video emphasizes other people, like what other people think, and how much that holds us back.
Yeah, that's such a common thread, isn't it? It's like this fear of judgment that keeps so many of us stuck. It's a great place to start this deep dive.
Yeah, totally. So, the first tip in the video is people care less than you think, which is kind of harsh, but also kind of true. How often do we really focus on, every single thing someone else is doing,
Right. It's so easy to get caught up in our own heads and assume that everyone else is watching our every move, scrutinizing our every decision.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that spotlight effect,
Yeah.
We think we're on stage, but everyone else is just busy living their own lives.
And there's actually a lot of psychology behind this. As humans, we're wired for connection. We want to belong. We want to be accepted. So the idea of being judged, especially negatively, can trigger a lot of anxiety.
So it's like our brains are trying to protect us from potential social rejection by making us hyper-aware of how others might perceive us.
Exactly. And the thing is, our brains are often really bad at accurately assessing risk in social situations. We tend to overestimate the likelihood of negative judgment.
Which means we end up holding ourselves back from doing things that we might actually really enjoy or be good at, just because we're worried about what other people might think.
Exactly. And it can be so paralyzing. Like you were saying earlier about how much you hate public speaking. It's not like you can just magically tell yourself, oh, nobody cares, and suddenly feel comfortable on stage.
Right? The fear is real. But maybe it's about understanding where that fear comes from, recognizing that it might be blown out of proportion, and then developing strategies to manage it.
Yeah, that's a great point. The YouTube video doesn't really delve into the how-to of overcoming these fears, but that's something we can definitely explore here. There are techniques like cognitive reframing or exposure therapy that can be really
So
helpful.
it's not about pretending the fear doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It's about equipping ourselves to deal with it in a healthy way.
Exactly. And that's where I think these deep dives can be so valuable. We can build on those initial insights and provide more context, more practical tools for actually applying these ideas in our lives.
I love that. Okay, so we've tackled the fear of judgment hurdle number 1. The video then moves on to accepting the past and letting go, which is pretty standard self-help advice. But I'm curious to hear your take on why this is so important for starting over.
I think it comes down to this. If we're constantly dwelling on past mistakes or regrets, we're essentially carrying that baggage into our new beginning. It's like trying to run a race with weights strapped to our ankles.
Okay, that's a powerful image. But how do you actually reframe the past? It's not like you can just magically change what happened, right?
It's not about erasing the past or pretending it didn't happen. It's about shifting our perspective on those experiences, finding the lessons, the growth, even the hidden opportunities that emerged from those challenging times.
So it's like turning those perceived failures into stepping stones.
Exactly. And this ties back to what we were discussing earlier about the fear of judgment. Often we're so afraid of making mistakes that we avoid taking risks altogether. But if we can reframe those mistakes as valuable learning experiences, we become less afraid of failure and more willing to step outside of our comfort zones.
I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together. It's not just about following a set of random tips. It's about creating a mindset shift that empowers you to embrace change.
And that mindset shift is crucial for actually making a lasting transformation.
Okay, so we've made peace with the past. We've faced the fear of judgment. What's next on this starting over journey?
Well, the YouTube video emphasizes the importance of setting a clear end goal. Having a vision of where you want to end up.
Right, because it's not enough to just say, I want a new life. You need a roadmap,
Yeah.
a destination.
Exactly. And that's where the whole concept of SMART goals comes in. Making sure your goals are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound.
Yeah, SMART goals provide that structure. So instead of just this vague desire for change, you have concrete milestones to work toward.
Exactly. Let's say you want to start a new business. Instead of just saying, I want to be my own boss, a SMART goal might be, I will launch my online store selling handmade jewelry within 6 months with a target revenue of X dollars.
Okay, yeah, that's way more actionable. But here's where I get a little tripped up. The video then talks about detaching from the outcome.
Wait, didn't we just talk about setting goals? How can you do both? That's where it gets interesting. And I appreciate that the video brings up this seemingly contradictory idea. It's about finding a balance.
Mhm.
Yes, have that clear vision, that end goal, but don't get so fixated on the result that you lose sight of the journey itself.
So it's not about obsessing over the destination. It's more about enjoying the process of getting there.
Exactly. And being open to the possibility that the path might unfold in unexpected ways.
Okay, I'm starting to see it. But give me an example. How does this detachment play out in real life?
Let's say someone's always dreamed of writing a novel. They might set a goal of finishing the first draft within a year. But if they get so focused on that end goal that they forget to actually enjoy the writing process itself, they might miss out on the joy of the creative exploration, the satisfaction of crafting a story.
So they might get so caught up in hitting that deadline that they lose sight of why they wanted to write the book in the first place.
Exactly. Or they might get so discouraged if the first draft isn't perfect, if it doesn't meet their initial expectations. Detaching from the outcome allows you to embrace the imperfections, the detours, the unexpected twists and turns that inevitably arise on any journey.
Okay, I think we've unpacked quite a bit in this first part of our deep dive.
Hmm.
We've tackled the fear of judgment, the importance of reframing the past, and the art of setting goals while simultaneously detaching from the outcome. It's a lot to digest, but I'm already feeling inspired.
Me too. And we're just getting started. There's so much more to explore in this whole starting over process.
Can't wait.
All right, let's dive back in.
Okay, so we're back, and we're diving deeper into this whole starting over thing.
Yeah.
In the last part, we talked about facing our fears, reframing the past, and that tricky balance of setting goals, but also being okay if things don't go exactly as planned. Where do we go from here?
Well, now we're getting into the inner critic territory. Those limiting beliefs that can really hold us back.
Oh, yeah, those are the worst. It's like you can have all the right external circumstances, but if you're constantly telling yourself, I can't do this, or I'm not good enough, well, you're probably right.
Exactly. Those limiting beliefs act as these invisible barriers, and they can be really sneaky too.
Yeah.
It's not always these big dramatic pronouncements. It's often more like these subtle whispers of doubt that erode our confidence over time.
Okay, but where do these beliefs come from? Is it just our own negativity?
Well, it's definitely not that simple. It's usually a combination of factors. Past experiences play a huge role. Let's say you tried to learn a new language in the past and you really struggled. That experience might lead to the belief that I'm just bad at languages.
Mhm.
Even if you're capable now, that old story might still be holding you back.
So it's like our brains are trying to protect us from future pain by reminding us of past struggles.
Exactly. It's a well-intentioned but often unhelpful survival mechanism. And it's not just personal experiences, it's also societal conditioning,
Yeah.
We absorb messages from our culture, our families, our peers about what's possible for someone like us.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like if you grew up in a family where no one went to college, you might unconsciously believe that path isn't for you, even if you have the ability and the desire.
Precisely. So the first step is becoming aware of these beliefs. What are the stories you're telling yourself about your limitations? Once you've identified them, you can start to question their validity.
Okay, so I've got my list of limiting beliefs staring me in the face. Now, how do I actually dismantle these things?
Think of it like putting those beliefs on trial. Are they based on facts or are they fear-based assumptions? Often you'll find that they crumble under scrutiny.
I love that. It's like, limiting belief, you stand accused of holding me back. Present your evidence.
Exactly. And then you replace them with empowering alternatives. This might involve affirmations or even better taking action that directly contradicts the limiting belief.
Oh, yeah. Action speaks louder than words, for
Yeah.
sure.
Okay.
I'm feeling fired up. But there's one part of this whole starting over thing that always makes me a bit nervous, trusting my intuition. You
Yeah.
know, the video emphasizes this, but it can feel so vague and, well, a little woo-woo, to be honest.
I get it. Intuition is often shrouded in this air of mystery, but there's actually a lot of scientific evidence to support its validity.
Really? So it's not just about blindly following your gut.
Not at all. Think of it more like developing self-awareness. Your body and mind are constantly sending you signals based on past experiences in subconscious processing. In neuroscience, these are called somatic markers.
Somatic markers. That sounds intense. Break it down for me.
Basically, it's your body's way of giving you feedback. Have you ever had that gut feeling that something is off even if you can't quite explain why?
Oh, yeah, all the time. Like when you meet someone new and just get a bad vibe even though they seem perfectly nice on the surface.
That's your somatic markers at work.
Yeah.
Your brain has picked up on subtle cues, body language, tone of voice, maybe even a faint scent, and it's triggered a warning signal based on past experiences.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Okay,
But how do you know if it's real intuition or just your anxiety pretending to be a gut feeling?
that's the million-dollar question. It takes practice and self-reflection. True intuition tends to be calm and clear, while anxiety-driven fear is often loud and insistent. Pay attention to how those feelings manifest in your body.
So it's almost like learning a new language, the language of your own intuition.
Hmm.
You have to pay attention to the subtle nuances, the whispers and the shouts, and learn to decipher what they mean.
That's a great analogy. And the more you practice listening to your intuition, the better you'll become at distinguishing it from fear or wishful thinking.
Okay, I'm feeling more confident about this intuition thing now. But the video ends on kind of a reality check, talking about the importance of preparing for failure. Isn't that a bit of a downer when we're trying to start fresh?
I think it's incredibly empowering, actually. When we're starting over, especially if we're pushing ourselves outside of our comfort zones, setbacks are inevitable. But the video isn't advocating pessimism, it's about shifting our relationship with failure.
So instead of trying to avoid failure at all costs, we should embrace it.
In a way, yes, failure isn't the opposite of success. It's part of the process. It's feedback. It's a chance to learn, adapt, and come back stronger.
Okay, but how do you actually prepare for failure? Do you make a list of every possible thing that could go wrong?
It's less about predicting specific failures and more about cultivating a growth mindset. This means viewing challenges as opportunities to learn and develop your abilities rather than seeing them as evidence of your limitations.
So it's the opposite of a fixed mindset, where you believe you're born with certain abilities and that's it.
Exactly. Someone with a fixed mindset might give up after a setback thinking, see, I knew I wasn't good at this. But with a growth mindset, you think, okay, that didn't work. What can I learn from this? How can I adjust my approach?
That's so powerful. It's like instead of beating yourself up over every mistake, you're using it as fuel to keep moving forward. So when we're talking about starting over, a big part of that is cultivating this growth mindset, this willingness to embrace challenges and learn from our missteps.
Absolutely. And one tool that can be incredibly helpful for navigating those challenges is gratitude.
Gratitude. How does that tie into dealing with failure?
When we're facing setbacks, it's easy to get caught up in negativity. But by intentionally focusing on what we're grateful for, we shift our perspective. It helps us to appreciate the progress we've made, even if it's not perfect, and to recognize the resources and support we have available.
So even when things are tough, taking a moment to appreciate the good things can help us stay motivated and resilient.
Exactly. It's like a mental reset button that helps us to approach challenges with a more positive and productive mindset.
We've covered a lot of ground here, from facing our fears to reframing the past, setting smart goals, embracing intuition, and even preparing for failure. It feels like we're really building a comprehensive guide to starting over. And yet there's still one more piece to this puzzle, right?
There is indeed. The YouTube video we're using as a springboard for this deep dive has one final tip that we haven't explored yet, and it might be the most important one of all.
All right, so we're back. And it's funny. We often think of starting over as this like huge dramatic life change, like moving to a new city or quitting your job. But from what we've been talking about, it seems like it's really more of an internal shift.
Absolutely. It's about challenging those deeply ingrained patterns of thinking and behaving that might be holding us back from reaching our full potential.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
And the YouTube video we've been unpacking touches on this in its final tip, which might be the simplest yet most profound one of all. Just start.
it sounds so obvious, right?
But-
But so many of us get stuck in the planning stage. We're paralyzed by fear or overwhelmed by the enormity of what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, we overthink, we procrastinate, we wait for the perfect moment that never seems to arrive.
And the truth is, there's never going to be a perfect moment. There's always going to be some element of uncertainty or risk.
So we're better off just diving in and figuring it out as we go.
The video really emphasizes that taking action, even if it's a small step, breaks that inertia. It shifts you from a passive observer to an active participant in your own life.
And I think this ties back to so much of what we've discussed already. Like, remember how we talked about the fear of judgment? Well, taking action is a way to prove that fear wrong.
Exactly. It's like saying to yourself, okay, I'm scared, but I'm doing it anyway. And in that moment, you reclaim your power.
And it also connects to embracing failure. When you take action, you're inevitably going to encounter setbacks. But those setbacks become valuable learning experiences.
Exactly. It's not about being perfect. It's about making progress. And the more you practice taking action, the more confident you become.
So it's this beautiful cycle. You take action, you learn from your mistakes, you adjust your approach, and you keep moving forward.
And the more you do this, the less scary it becomes. The fear of failure starts to diminish because you realize that it's not the end of the world if things don't go exactly as planned.
Okay, so just start. But I think for a lot of people, that advice can still feel a bit overwhelming. Where do you even begin? What does taking action actually look like in real life?
It doesn't have to be this big grand gesture. It could be something as simple as signing up for that online course you've been eyeing, or reaching out to a mentor in your field.
Or even just spending 15 minutes each day working on that personal project you've been putting off
Exactly. It's about breaking down those big, scary goals into smaller, more manageable steps.
and celebrating those small wins along the way.
Right, absolutely. Because every step you take, no matter how small, builds momentum. It reinforces that belief in yourself, that sense of agency and control over your own life.
This has been such an insightful deep dive.
Yeah.
We started with a simple YouTube video, and we ended up exploring some really deep and powerful concepts about personal growth and transformation.
And I think the takeaway here is that starting over isn't just about changing your external circumstances. It's about changing your internal landscape.
Mhm.
It's about shifting your mindset, embracing challenges, and trusting in your own ability to create the life you desire.
Absolutely. Well said. I think that's the perfect note to end on. So to everyone listening out there, remember the power to start over is within you. Take that first step and watch what happens.
And don't forget to enjoy the journey. Thanks for joining us on another deep dive.